Okay, here we are at the range on a Thursday evening. It's quite nice out for October 25th. Got a squirrel down range over there. It's in the 70s, probably just about 72, 73 degrees. We're set up here at 50 yards with a 1917 Enfield Sporter that I just bought this past Saturday at a gun shop in Hastings, Michigan, after a silhouette shoot that I went to. It came with the base, Leupold standard base, but I had to put the rings and the scope on it. Had all that off of there to get the serial number for the transfer and all those kinds of things. But I thought this was a quite nicely done 1917. If you look at the finish on the receiver, it's very nice, and the bluing job on the barrel is very nice. They've taken the sights off. They did put some plug screws in there, the old rear sight screw holes, nicely polished out and whatnot, and did a really nice job. Whoever did it did a really nice job taking the ears off the back of the receiver. You know, typically these 1917s have the big protective ears that guard the rear sight, and I say the finish on the receiver is very nice. It looks like at some point in time this may have had a rear peep on it, or at least was drilled for it, and it looks like maybe it was even in this stock, because there is a filler piece here that looks like maybe they filled in after they took that sight off. So I'm guessing, I don't know the history of this rifle, I'm guessing it was Sporterized at some time in the past. I believe this is a Bishop stock, but I'm not sure. It sure feels like a Bishop. But I'm guessing it was Sporterized sometimes in the past, and then someone recently did some cleanup work on it, I think, and refinished it. It has had a repair to the stock right here behind the tang. This is very common on Enfields and Sporter stocks. If they didn't have good bedding on the recoil lug, they tend to split things back here. So that does not surprise me that that's been repaired. But it's got a decent grain pattern in this stock. It's got a ebony tip on the front there, or it could be some kind of fake ebony, dark wood of some sort. But I really like the finish that was put on the receiver, and on the bluing job on the barrel is very nice. It picks up fingerprints fast because it's quite nicely polished. And anyway, I set it up with low height Leupold standard rings. This is a VX2, the modern inexpensive VX2 3-9 Leupold. So that's all on there. I just finished putting a quick bore sight on it. Let's hope it's close enough, and let's hope the rifle shoots. Today isn't so much about shooting killer groups. I've only got 8 rounds of loaded ammunition, and the reason that is after I started on the purchase of this rifle and we started doing the 4473, I noticed on the computer it said 30-06 Ackley improved rather than 30-06 Springfield like it said on the tag on the rifle. So we verified that it was indeed an Ackley improved chamber. I chose to purchase it anyway. I don't have a ton of money invested in the rifle. It was very cost effective, so I just blew out some brass at home for the Ackley improved chamber. I started with just standard 30-06, and I annealed it, and then I necked it up to 35 caliber, put a false shoulder on it, fire formed it with cream of wheat, and this is what we have now. We're shooting a 180 grain interlock, Hornady interlock, with the lead tip, the SP. And I don't want to talk too much about load data because I am a rookie at Ackley improved in 30-06, but let's just say if this powder charge and this bullet were in a standard 30-06 case, we'd be looking at about 2,750 feet per second, which you would say, okay, it should be a little slower in the AI, because if we look at this AI case all blown out and its capacity, let's set it on the paper there where you can see it, versus a standard 30-06 case, you can see that there's a bit of dimensional difference in those two cases. The AI is blown out. The numbers, by what I read, say it's about 5% bigger. So we would expect this to be slower than the 2750 that you would see in a standard 06 chamber. I did do a little bit of testing with bullet seating depth in this rifle. I can't get anywhere near the lands with this 180 interlock. I'm guessing that it is throated rather long. It probably has a lot of freebore in it, like a Weatherby or something. That would certainly reduce pressure, and if you were chasing velocity, that certainly is the way they chambered them back in the day, to get velocity. I'm not really after velocity, I'm just after a nice 1917 action. Hey, if this barrel's a turkey, I'll just rebarrel it with a modern, a modern barrel, and we'll be on our way. There's a lot of things you can do with a 1917, and I felt that this one, I felt that the refinish work on this one deserved purchase. The floor plate is very nice. They put a flattened floor plate on it so that it does not have the stagger in it for the 6-round mag. Very nicely blued on those steel parts. I couldn't say no to it. So it came home with me, and I accepted the fact that it's an AI, you know, and we'll give it a try. This one, I think, was chambered like a lot of Ackley improved cartridges where someone simply ran a reamer into it. That's not, from what I'm reading, the right way to do it. The right way to do it is to turn the barrel back a turn, to set it back, get some space, then ream it, and they're supposed to try to headspace it about 4 thousandths shorter than a standard .6 so that you can chamber a standard 30-06 and fire it to blow out the brass. This one, a standard piece of 30-06 brass, will chamber loosely in it. So I'm guessing they didn't turn it back. I think they ran it in until it looked clean. So it's probably a little long. I think there's more that are like this than that have 4 thousandths of interference. I think more of them were done without taking the barrels off and setting them back than were reamed properly. So another thing I've read is a good way to headspace a Ackley improved cartridge, in particular the .6, is to use the 30-06 go gauge as the Ackley improved no-go gauge, and that gives you, somewhere around 4,000, 6,000, somewhere in that realm of crush when you put a piece of regular 30-06 brass in it. So that's why I went through all the work on the fire forming. People would say, hey, you could have fire formed that brass just out of regular 30-06. You can chamber it. Yeah, you can chamber it, and yeah, I probably could have fired it, but it would have excessive head space, and what would happen is it would, firing pin, the striker, would blow the cartridge forward to the shoulder. It would fire, it would grip the case walls to the chamber, and it would blow the head back and stretch back by the web of the case, making the brass thinner back there where you don't want it to be thinner. So to me, the proper way was to create a false shoulder on it and get it to chamber tightly so that it is a good tight fit before you fire form it. So I did the initial fire forming with cream of wheat and some fast burning pistol powder, did that at home, and then we'll do this secondary fire forming, if you will. I'm guessing it'll sharpen up the corners in these rounds today. So once again, we're at 50 yards. I do have the chrono set up because I'm curious as to what these will chrono at. I'll have to go down and turn the target camera on. Let's hope we're on the paper, and I'll see you in a minute after I get things set up. Okay, here we are. We're all set up out here at 50 yards, going for the long distance world record. Oh, we're just trying to see if this rifle will run. Say my goal for today is to function check the rifle, to more or less make sure it runs, see how the brass looks. I'd like to see if it tends to group a little bit. Like I said, I only have 8 rounds, so I don't have a lot to work with here. A little bit of preliminary velocity gathering. This load should be 2750 in a standard 30-06 chamber. This has about 5%, 8% more case volume, so it should be a little slower, but it is a long barrel and it does have a lot of free bore. They might cancel each other out. Maybe we'll see a little bit more velocity. Maybe we'll see the same. Don't know. It's kind of a big experiment. So all set up here. Do have the chrono set up. The first one I'm going to be a little tentative with because I have not fired this rifle. I'm just going to run one round, keep my face away from it a little bit. I'm comfortable with the way the rifle locks up, but I still think it makes a little bit of sense to just be a little careful on the first one. So we'll chamber this first one up here. And I have run through the manual of arms, if you will, on this rifle. The safety is working correctly. Everything seems to be pretty good on it, but we'll chamber one up here. And then I'm just gonna hold, I'll sight it, get it sighted in pretty good, and then I'll back out of it and just hold it. I don't know if it'll be anywhere close or not, but we'll just try it and see. Okay, we're in the ballpark. It's a 2-stage trigger. 2539 on that velocity. Everything looks pretty normal here. See how it extracts. It extracts fine. Let's look at this brass. Oh yeah, that sharpened that shoulder up significantly. I'm very pleased with that. This piece of brass was destined to be a test piece. It has just a little weird thing on the neck where I got into it with the expander. But yeah, that sharpened that up a lot. I don't know if you can see the difference between the two. This one kind of has a bit of a round appearance to it. This one put that 40-degree shoulder in there very nicely after it fire formed. Okay, well, let's look and see where that landed on the target. Of course, you guys have the target camera, I don't. So you already know if it's on the cardboard or not. Let's take a look. Well, for not even having my cheek on the rifle, I'll take that. So let's single feed this one. Now this is a, 1917 is a true controlled round feed action, so it is best to put it in the magazine so that when the bolt comes forward, the cartridge slips up underneath the claw extractor and chambers correctly. If you just lay it in there, that big extractor has to snap over it, and that's not in my estimation, that's not the best way to do it. So anyway, let's see what we can do as far as a real shot here. So I think the rifle is safe. Those are chambering nice and firm, just like I would like. .25-32. It's only 7 off. Since it's what we like to see, we'll believe it. If it was really far off, we wouldn't believe it. That's how chronos work. Where did we shoot? We shot just a little bit down from that first one. Very good. So my bore sight job seemed to be pretty good. Again, that looks really good. I should get a paper towel rather than you put the greasy, grimy dirt on my fingers. But yeah, that brass is blowing out very nicely. That's a good looking shoulder. This is made from some vintage Winchester Super X 30-06 brass. The challenge that you have is that when you use 30-06 brass to do this with, because you're making the case diameter bigger and moving that shoulder around, it uses up brass and it gets shorter on that initial fire forming. So it's really tough to get to the trim length with 06 brass. I think that starting with 35 Whelen brass would be the hot setup, because then I wouldn't have to neck it up. I might try 270 brass. I've got a lot of it. I could neck it up in 2 steps, like maybe go from 270 to 30 caliber, and then from 30 caliber to 35 caliber, put the false shoulder in it and run it. That might be a good way to do it. That would give me a little bit of extra length. A 270 case is just a little bit longer than a 30-06 case. But yeah, I'm very pleased with that. That fire formed that very nicely for this test brass. This brass probably isn't destined for much other use other than this initial testing to see how the chamber looks, take some measurements. Now that it's blown out, let's compare it to the 30-06. I don't know how well the camera will pick it up, but if I can tell here, yeah, it looks like it's, I don't know, it's, actually the neck junction the neck junction does look to be back a little bit from the 06s where it had ought to be, but it's, I think I have tried to chamber this piece of 06 brass before, but let's do it again just to see if it gets any kind of interference in closing. You see, it's a real loose fit on that. So I think this chamber is, certainly not the 4,000 short like you'd, per spec. I think it's a little bit longer, but it's not a lot longer. So it's interesting to see the change in the brass. I'm real impressed with how the shoulders sharpened up. You can see that from the cream of wheat firing, they're a little bit rounded right there on the shoulder. They're not as defined, and on this fire formed with actual bullet in the barrel and probably more pressure, it formed it out real nicely. I'm real pleased with how that looks. No evidence of any kind of bulging down here above the head. Nothing to worry about there. We did a real good job keeping that brass in there tight. Yeah, it blew that out real nicely. Okay, well, let's try another shot and see if we can get it in the ballpark. We'll do another single feed. I hope we keep enough light for our chrono here, because it is starting to get a little bit dusk here. Overcast sky. Boy, firing these new rifles is always so tentative, especially the milsurps that have been worked on. I'm always just a little bit on edge, and I'm even a little bit hesitant about filming it because if one of these things does come unglued, I'm not sure I want it on film. I was confident with this one because the way the bolt feels, and I looked at the lugs real carefully. I looked inside the receiver. Everything looked real nice. You know, and like I said, I did fireform brass with it at home. So, you know, certainly not the same stress on the action that the actual ammunition is, but I was pretty sure that it was going to be fine. But I'm still tentative about them. They're always, these new ones, you're always just a little bit weary of. That chrono reading was 25:42. And again, a real nice looking piece of brass. I don't see anything about that I don't like. Nice sharp neck shoulder junction, nice sharp shoulder. Feels good down at the base. There's no odd marks in the case walls. It looks real good. Let's see where that shot went. And that's between the first two. The windage is almost exactly the same. I would guess that some of that elevation is simply me being tentative on the hold and a kind of a crappy rear bag. And like I said, I wasn't going for world record accuracy here. I'm just going for function testing and seeing if the rifle has got a bright future or not. Ooh, that one was a lot slower, 25:09. Of course, with this lighting, it can be all over the place. Certainly within the realm of what I see in chronograph data on days where it's, you know, so we're 25:09 to 25:42, which, and of course, this brass is moving a lot because it's fire forming to the chamber. See what we got there. I think that one is right with the last shot. Yeah, I think that one is right with the one that was between the first two. It's a little warm, but not crazy warm. We'll give it just a split second here to cool off just a little, but say I'm real happy with the rifle. The finish on it is good. They even put a nice finish on the claw extractor, which starting to wear a little bit now that it's been going in and out a little bit. But I think that work had just been done on this right before I got it. I don't know why they sold it. I just thought it was a handsome rifle and was interested in playing with it, but it looks real good. I don't see anything to worry too much about here. The dog leg bolt works real good versus the scope, plenty of clearance. At first I put a bigger scope on it. I was looking at I have a 3 to 9 by 50 with an adjustable objective. And I thought about putting that on there. Of course, with the 50mm objective, it required loop-holed high rings. I kind of like this one down lower and tighter. The 50 millimeter front objective would have been nice, as would the adjustment, but I had this loopholed already, so it was an easy one to fit on there with the low rings, and that makes it a little bit more trim package. The cheek weld is a little bit better with these lower rings. I could get away with the medium rings with that 50 millimeter objective. That looked like it would clear. I temporarily mocked it up on there, but I ended up opting for the low rings and this smaller scope. Well, one thing I have read about Ackley improved cartridges is that sometimes they don't feed as well as standard ones. No, that's not a good. I could test that a little bit, but it's not a good test because we don't have the sharp corner on there. So maybe we'll hold off on the feeding evaluation until I run brass that's actually got the cases nice and sharply formed. All right, well, let's put another shot down there and see where it goes. I shouldn't be wasting my time with this rear bag. This rear bag is terrible. That one says 2518. Again, the brass is looking real good. And we're still right there in that same area. Looking good for 50 yards, I think. Looking real good for 50 yards. Give it just a minute here. It's not hot, but yeah, I didn't do much with the barrel. I ran some patches through it and some gunk come out of it, and then of course when I did the fire forming with the cream of wheat, you get all kinds of toasted cream of wheat in there. And so then after that, I used some solvent and brushed it a little bit with a standard Pro Shot bronze phosphor brush, and then you know, some patches on a swag and cleaned it up real good. And then it brought out some stuff that I think came from the brush rather than the barrel. So then I used a little bit of shooter's choice and just swabbed it a couple times, but I got no blue color out of it at all. So there's not copper in the barrel or anything like that. The lands look good. The grooves are a little bit dark, but that could just be that, I don't know how when they blued this, if they didn't plug it up real good when they blued it. You know, he could have some of that in the barrel even, I don't know. But we'll shoot it a little bit, and then I didn't bore scope it or anything yet. I wanted to get out and shoot it because, you know, looking at the brass was the main thing. If the brass looked terrible, I didn't want to waste any time on the rifle, but I'm pleased with how this brass looks, even though I speculate that it may be a little bit long. I don't think it's but a couple thousandths long. It's not a lot. Let's see, that last one was 2518. I better record that. So you know, this firing is just to evaluate where I'm at on this purchase. I do this with pretty much all my rifles. I make some, even if it's a standard chambering, I'll a lot of times make brass that fits super tight, shoot it, look at what the brass looks like, you know, and evaluate from there what I'm going to do with the rifle. If this brass looked really bad, I'd probably buy a barrel and put it back to regular .6. This one's only 30-06 Ackley improved because that's what it was when I bought it. That wouldn't have been something that I would have done for my needs. I would have probably preferred it to be just standard 30-06, but I wanted the rifle because I liked how it looked. It's a good, solid 1917 action, nicely done. So even when I found out that it was Ackley improved, I decided to give it a try, and you know, we'll see how it does. I'm kind of interested, you know, as long as everything comes together okay, we'll see how it does. Work up some loads and see what the velocities will do. I'm not after magnum velocities, but it'd be interesting to see that, you know, with reasonable pressures, you know, reasonable load data, you know, what it really does. Okay, boy, those clouds are taking away our sunlight here. Yeah, I think the light is playing hell with our chronograph. That one says 2607. I think that's just the change in lighting. Once again, the brass looks real good. I'm happy with that. Well, I'm happy that my bore sight job was so close. Sometimes you get them done well and sometimes you don't. Now this is, like I said, the Leupold standard base, so you've got the turn-in front ring and the windage adjustable rear ring. So what I did is I turned in the front ring and checked it with a machinist square, and temporarily put the scope in there, checked to see if I was pretty close with the rifle, you know, because I remounted the base with Loctite and whatnot. And you don't really know how straight the base is, but so I just guessed at it, put it all on there, mounted up the rear ring, set my eye relief where I wanted it, got things tweaked, this and that and the other, and then, you know, my rear screws back here I just had finger tight. I didn't even bother at home with them. Brought them out here to the range, set up with a bore, you know, with a target, and looking down the barrel and matching the scope to what I see down the barrel, and then I, you know, carefully tightened and adjusted these rear windage screws and just took a guess at it, and I got lucky. I got lucky. It's looking pretty good. Where's that last shot at? Looks like that one, was that the one that's up a little higher? Maybe it was faster. I'll have to review the camera footage before I make that call, but you guys saw it hit, so you can tell me where that one went. That might be the one that's a little higher. If it was that much, if it was 2607, you know, on the order of 75, 80 feet per second faster, it very well could have flown that high. But I am pleased that the windage is good, because that's what I was worried about. I was worried about if this base was on here straight, if I was going to be able to get things, you know, you worry about all that when somebody else did the work, and you wonder about my setup on the scope. You know, I did the best I could with the methods that I use, and looks like I got lucky on this one as far as having it set up pretty good. Let's run another and see where it goes. That one's right up there in speed too, 2588. If the chronograph is getting good light. We don't know that. If you ask some of those super high-tech guys, they'd say that the barrel's coming in, that we've put 5 shots down the bore and it's conditioned, and now it's broken in and they picked up 80 feet per second of velocity. So where was the impact on that one? That one looks like it's just a smidgen right and halfway between what we had and that last high one. But yeah, I'm pleased with where the windage is landing for my kind of ad hoc bore sight job. The barrel is a little warmer. All of the brass is the same Super X. It is range pickup brass from who knows where and who knows when. There could be differences in case volume, there, you know, all kinds of things, and plus, you know, how well they were fire formed. You know, there's a lot of variables here, so You know, the spread is probably indicative of that, plus the light, plus cheap chronograph. There isn't anything scientific going on here. It's all just random. But I'm really happy with how the brass is forming. The light has changed significantly with this cloud cover. It's forecast to rain this evening. That's why I kind of rushed out here. It's supposed to rain a little bit tonight and tomorrow, I think. Temperature's still supposed to be warm tomorrow, I think, just kind of wet. But for October, my 70-degree days are running out. Got some leaves down in the yard. I should probably try to get home and take care of that a little bit before it gets too wet, but this is more fun. This is definitely more fun. My other 1917, it's in a stock very similar to this. It actually, I think it might even have a cutout in the top of the cheek here, so there's not a lot of clearance between the bottom of the bolt and the top of the stock. It's not contacting it, but there isn't a lot of room. I think my other one might have a groove there. If that starts to rub or whatnot, we can always route a little slot in there for clearance. All right, here's the last one. Let's see if I can keep it reasonable. It's a little warm, but not terrible. You know, my other 1917 that I've shot matches with, I run at a very rapid pace during the timed fire stuff, and it doesn't seem to suffer at all from it. And the setup on this one is very similar. It's got the front band that goes into the sling swivel on the bottom. And you know, my other one has been shooting so well. There's a couple little things with the stock that I'd like to take care of, you know, a couple of little marks that I'd like to work on the finish, but it's been shooting so well I don't want to take it out of the stock, so I've just left it alone. Okay, last one. What's that all about? The safety, that's what. I had it in the wrong position. $25.71. So you guys even get to see me fiddling with the safety there and forgetting to turn it off all the way. That's the kind of stuff that happens shooting on video. $25.71 that time. But yeah, the brass looks real good. I'm happy with that. Real happy with that. Blew them out real nicely. We'll clean these, maybe anneal them again, run another round through them, see how they look after that. But I don't see anything at all to worry about with any of this. How'd we do on that last shot? It's right in there with the others. Okay, well, I think I might call this a success. Let's walk down and take a look at the target, and you guys can kind of see the size of what we've got going on down there. Okay, downrange now. Here's the target camera. We can shut that off. Is it trying to rain? I think it might be trying to rain a little bit here. We can kind of hustle up and get things put away. All right, well, there we go on that. So I had spread this pizza box out because I didn't know how good my bore sighting job was going to be. And turns out I would have been okay without it. So what I was aiming at here at 50 yards was this roughly 2 1/4 inch orange spot. I used that for my bore sighting through the barrel and for my shooting. And you know, we had 3 of them together here, and then when the velocities came up, we did get up here and kind of settled in this area. I don't know if the velocities were really up. I don't know if that was just the light and the chronograph. It's hard to tell. We'll shoot it some more and see how it goes, but you know, we we're all stacked in there, you know, on the first 8 shots in about 2 1/4 inches. And like I said, we were like this shot, then this shot, I think, and then these 3, and then we had one come up, and then we kind of were doing these here. So we'll get it home, look it over, make sure everything's looking good, torque down wise and all that. And I don't know if those last shots were actually faster or not. It's hard to tell. It's just what the chronograph says, and it might be true, it might not be true. It's hard to tell, but I'm really happy that my windage guess was so close on that. That's probably luck. You know, those Leupold standard bases with adjustable windage, you know, they're kind of tricky. So, you know, it'll be interesting to see as I move it out and make adjustments how it does. You know, if it seems to stay lined up pretty good when we move back a little bit and all that. And I'll have to get some more ammo together and get this thing back out to the range again soon. So thanks everybody for watching the Ackley Enfield video and my first experience with an Ackley improved cartridge. So have a good day.